right, good evening. Thank you for coming to our traffic council meeting. We'll start with introductions at the beginning of the meeting. I'm David Kozis, the transportation coordinator from Public Works Department. We're joined by Captain Doucette of the Traffic Bureau, Isaac Prezant, traffic engineer. Let's see, our citizen rep, we have Mitch Fishman is here. I do not see our alternate citizen. We have as a counselor, Counselor Maliki from Ward 3 will be voting. And Danielle Delaney, our city clerk. I also see we're joined by Counselor Kelly from Ward 3, and I believe Counselor-elect Block, right? From which ward is that? From Ward 4. Okay, so thank you all. We'll begin with our first item of the evening. Our first item is TC 16620. It's Councilors Leary and Greenberg requesting to add EV charging stations and or EV vehicles into the Pearl Street parking lot. So we'll do a quick presentation, then we'll open it up for any comments before we vote. So for this item, here is the location. It's the Pearl Street parking lot in Newton Corner. Actually, this item we had discussed back in 2020. We held it in order to add some EV charging stations. Those have been installed, and then we held it a little bit longer because the whole parking lot was recently reconstructed. So here is a layout of the reconstructed Pearl Street lot. It's now complete, open, and the reason that this was on the agenda tonight is because we need to make a small edit in one of the charts in our traffic and parking regulations. It's section TPR 194. This is the section that displays all of our public lots and how many, sort of the distribution of spaces, how many 1 hour spaces, 2 hour spaces, etc., how many EV charging spaces and other spaces. So you see in the Pearl Street lot, this is the distribution of spaces that we had. So we'll be removing the old distribution of spaces and replacing it with, this is really the change. All we're doing was we removed 5 long-term spaces and added 4 EV charging spaces. So that is already completed and ready to vote on. And are there any comments before anyone makes a motion? Okay, I don't see any. So I will make a motion to approve the language to replace the old chart with the new chart, including the changes for the Pearl Street lot. That would be TPR 917 for TC 16620. Any last comments? Okay. Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Prezant?
Aye.
Mr. Kozis?
Aye.
Captain Doucette?
Aye.
Mr. Fishman?
Aye.
And Councilor Maliki?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0, and it is TPR 917.
Thank you. Okay, so our next item is TC 4823. Councilors Kelly, Maliki, and Wright requesting to restrict parking on the north side of Watertown Street, 120 feet east of Davis Avenue, to improve intersection sightlines. So this item we heard in October. There's a couple slides that I'm just showing again from our October meeting. This is the location in West Newton, Watertown Street at Davis Avenue. The concern was leaving Davis Avenue and looking to the east, just when vehicles are parked too close to the intersection, it blocked the sight lines. So on this slide, you can see way back in the distance, that's where I put the measuring wheel. That's 120 feet away from Davis Avenue. Here's a view looking to the west and the same location, 120 feet away from Davis. The utility pole is 110 feet from Davis. I think it's Davis Avenue, not Davis Street, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So we had two options that were presented back in the October meeting. One, you notice the route, this is what the signage looked like before any change was made. We had the Route 16 sign, and then right below it on the same pole was a no parking here to corner sign. So the first option was to move that no parking sign 1 car length, to open up the sight lines, to move it 20 feet further to the east. That would remove 1 parking space, but would retain 3 of the parking spaces. And this was the language that we had to be able to vote on at the time. Our second option was to create even a longer no parking zone, to move that no parking here to corner sign all the way to the utility pole. In that case, we would be losing 3 parking spaces and just keeping the 1 space in this photo. So what happened in that meeting was we decided to hold it for a trial, to go with the least restrictive change, trying to open up the sight lines by creating a no parking zone 60 feet from Davis Avenue, moving this 1 car length additional no parking zone. So we did that. Here is a view of what the conditions are in the field now. This is looking toward the east. You can see that it's a little bit easier quite a bit easier to see now than it was before when a car was parked all the way up to the corner. And here's a view looking toward West Newton. You can see now that the no parking here at a corner sign used to be underneath this sign, but it was put on a new pole. So my recommendation here, well, we want to hear from the public, but the recommendation would be to make the trial permanent. I think it's opened up the sight lines, and we would sort of leave the conditions as they are now. Of course, we can revisit it again if it continues to be a problem, but it seems like it's worked pretty well. And this would be the language to make that happen. And that's the presentation I have for this item. Are there any comments from the public or from city councilors? Councilor Kelly.
I agree with you 100%, David Kosis. I think that the things are improved quite a bit with this most minimal solution. I do wish Councilor Wright was here to hear her thoughts on it. Perhaps Councilor Malachy has heard from her, but I think that this worked and it's adequate, and I would be happy to support it also, even though I'm not a voting member. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kelly. Any other comments? Okay. Then I would like to make a motion to approve the language as shown on slide 19 to make the trial permanent. That would be TPR 918. Are there any comments before we vote? Seeing none, Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Captain Doucette,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Councilor Malachy.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0.
Good. Our next item is TC 5923. This is Councilor Kelly on behalf of neighborhood residents requesting to add a stop sign on Maynard Street westbound at the intersection of Morrill Street. So this sort of came out from a comment that we heard at the last traffic council meeting, where we talked quite extensively about possible changes in this area, especially on Albemarle Road. It was noted that there is no stop sign at the T intersection at where Maynard Street and Morrill Street create a T intersection. So here's a view. This is Maynard Street westbound. This is the T intersection. It's sort of wide open right there, like we heard from the resident at the meeting last month. So this is a request for not for a four-way or a multi-way stop sign, but it's simply to put a stop sign at the T intersection, which we hear regularly. Almost every single meeting, we hear a request like this. And so there's no official warrants that we need to look to. We are allowed to put a stop sign at at a T intersection. It's implied you're supposed to be stopping anyway. We're not required to put a stop sign, of course, but whenever it comes up, we look at it, and generally we do agree to put the stop sign at these type of T intersections. We do think it's a small safety benefit, definitely clarifies the right of way at intersections like this. And so especially with people crossing, etc., we do tend to support these stop signs, and that's the recommendation for this location as well. We do recommend to add the stop sign at this location, and this would be our language to be able to vote today after a 20-day appeals period. So any comments on this? I don't think we've received, we did receive one email from a resident at 26 Mossman Road who did support adding the stop sign at this T intersection, but that's the only feedback we've received. Councillor Maliki.
Yeah, I think this was a great idea. Unlike some other T intersections where I thought a stop sign was kind of dumbing things down, this is it almost doesn't look like a T intersection. It looks like a triangle or something. So I think it's very good to clarify it.
Good, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none.
Okay. Mr.
I will
Prezant,
make I'll just make
Oh.
the motion first. Danielle, so
Sorry.
I'll make the motion to approve this stop sign. This would be TPR 919 for TC 5923. Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
okay. Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Captain Doucette,
Aye.
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0.
All right, moving right along. The next item is TC 6023, David Kozis, Traffic Council Chair, requesting to add a stop sign at the intersection of Carver Road southbound at Woodward Street. This is in wards 5 and 6. Here is the location. Let's see. So northbound, there actually is already a stop sign at the end at this T intersection. Southbound, there's not. Here's a view of what it looks like, slightly offset. This is a T intersection with no stop sign and people crossing across Carver Street. So same exact considerations that we just talked about. We do tend to support these, helps inform who has the right of way. All the same things we just said before for the last item. So we are also recommending to add the stop sign here. And that's our recommendation. So we have the language to be able to vote. Are there any comments on this item? Mitch.
I don't have a comment. I'm just wondering, what was the source? Was it citizen complaint or, somebody within the government?
Oh, this was a request by Jen Martin, who is our Safe Routes to School coordinator. So she must have heard a concern from a parent of children walking to school, is my guess.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, no other comments? So Danielle, can you call the roll, please? This would be for approval of TPR 920 to add the stop sign.
Are you making that motion, Mr.
I am
Kosis?
making that motion. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Captain Doucette,
Aye.
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0, and that was TPR 920.
Okay, and I should say this item, just like the previous items, we do have the 20-day appeals period. So we need to wait until January to be able to add the stop sign. Of course, then we might have the winter weather. It's the same crew that adds these stop signs that does the shoveling during winter snowstorms. So the soonest this could happen would be the beginning of January. We need to dig safe it, but we can't do anything until we wait till January 3rd to make sure that there's no appeals, which would be unlikely in this case. Okay, so our next item is TC 6123. David Kozis, Traffic Council Chair, on behalf of Civico Development, requesting a permanent change to the TPR or a trial that will change the parking regulations on a small section of Armory Street. This item is docketed in accordance with the site plan associated with the comp permit number 10-22 of the Newton ZBA for 1135 to 1137 Washington Street, as approved on January 11th, 2023, which indicates a cutout and addition of parking along a small portion of Armory Street. So this item, we actually heard it back earlier this year in April at our April Traffic Council meeting. This is Armory Street right here. This is the section of Armory Street that we'll be talking about. Here's the Armory itself that's going to be reconstructed, and Trader Joe's is on this side. So here's a view looking to the north with Washington Street in the background and the Pike. So back in April, this was the site plan that we were presented and that we voted on. You see, as part of the reconstruction of the building, the plan was to add 2 parking spaces, sort of this little bump out right here with a sidewalk bumped onto the private property, and to add 2 parking spaces where the sidewalk currently is located. There was going to be an accessible space and a loading zone. So that's what was presented to us back in April. We voted to approve that to prepare for the construction. And then more recently, we heard that there was a small change to the site plan in terms of the change on Armory Street itself. The cutout is now going to be smaller. Instead of 2 parking spaces, there's only going to be 1 space on Armory Street. You can see this is the bump out, and it would not be an accessible space. The accessible spaces are relocated on site, and this would be the requesting a 15-minute loading zone. So it's a small change, but we still do need to make a change to our traffic and parking regulations by removing the language that we had approved back in April, and instead having this language for Armory Street, which does not have an accessible space on the public way, but still has the loading zone, the 15-minute limit. Okay, so that is the recommendation to approve, approve what is shown on the revised site plan, or actually, I guess it's the same, the revised site plan. And that is the presentation. Are there any comments on this item? Mitch.
So I was just wondering, if it's a loading zone, is it, are they ever designated for Uber pickup as opposed to being on Washington Street, or that's sort of self-evident that no one has to kind of identify it at all?
Well, I mean, it's a public 15-minute space is what it's going to be approved as. So so anyone would be able to park there for 15 minutes. It does not need to be someone going into the Armory. It could be, it's a public space on a public street. So it would be a 15-minute space enforced, by the Newton Police. Anyone who's parked there longer than 15 minutes could be cited.
I mean, it just seemed like an ideal location, if people had Uber. I mean, I guess it could be a Trader Joe's, or they could be they could be in the new development. Maybe it's self-evident, but we don't have any rights to post it, or that's not part of our jurisdiction, right?
Well, that was not the request that was made.
Right.
The request that was approved by the ZBA was for a 15-minute space. I mean, it's a parking space on a public street that can be changed at any time, just by coming back to traffic council. If it's not working as a 15-minute space, someone would just need to docket it, and then we could change it again.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm in favor of it. I was just thinking that it'd be good to use a space like this, to encourage pickup and drop off, et cetera. But I don't know. Isaac, that's probably not feasible to get it posted in that way because perhaps there are other uses. And you want to leave it open for all sorts of things, right?
Well, I mean, they might want to use it for deliveries into the building.
Right. Okay. I'm good.
I mean, an Uber would be able to park there for 15 minutes to pick up or drop off if that one space is available. It's only one space on the street.
Okay.
Okay, we don't want someone like queuing up, in the travel lane waiting to get into the one space, right? Because it's a two-way street with a lot of traffic going in and out. Counselor Maliki.
Yeah, it looks fine. I'm kind of surprised. I did not actually know that anyone can park in a loading zone. I thought one had to be on sort of official business. Is that not the case?
I mean, anyone can load or unload anything.
Oh, okay. So my question was, how is this working timing wise? Is it not going to physically go in until there's an actual indentation to create the space?
This has happened from time to time where my preference always is to construct what you're constructing. And then when it's the end of construction, docket something for traffic council to come and see it and measure it with our little measuring wheel and then vote at that point. But, lately there's been some pressure to approve changes in advance of the construction as, part of the site plan and sort of financing, I guess, of different projects. This happened at Dunstan East. This has happened also here at the Armory. So what's going to happen is we're going to end up having revised regulations in our TPR that don't reflect what's actually on the ground quite yet. In fact, for Dunstan East, though that was approved a long time ago at this point with a loading zone and parking spaces over there. That's not what you see, currently on the ground there. We know that, but I think I don't know what to say. I think when you have site plans that are approved by city council or by ZBA, and they show changes on the ground, on the public way, it's sort of traffic council acting, I guess, as, what's the word? Sort of,
Rubber stamp.
yeah, a rubber stamp.
That was in my head too.
Yeah, a rubber stamp. I think we're acting as a rubber stamp in this case.
Yeah, I can see the argument for having it approved because it's part of the comprehensive permit plan. But if you correct me if I'm wrong, there's no parking along that stretch, right?
There's no parking right now because they're going to be building a new bump out.
Yeah.
But we also always say that, traffic council will, look to see what we think is in the best interest of the city. And, even if something is approved at one point in time, we're going to reconstruct into Washington Street, right? And, things will change over time. And so we've said all your loading and unloading, it should be on your site, and then the public way sort of as a secondary resource.
Yeah, I guess my only thought was that if you change the regulation, then is it suddenly legal for anyone to park in that spot, even though the indentation isn't there? Because that would seem to be like a problem for like the larger trucks that back into the Trader Joe's loading dock and then have to make a right angle turn out. I'm just not sure, but I think it seems like the only people who would know about this would be the people who read the TPR.
Yep. So you're right. I mean, I think it is a possibly a problem, and that if someone parks right exactly in that space 37 feet north of Washington Street right now, you're parking in the travel lane. right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
according to the regulations, you're allowed to park there. So if
Yeah.
someone gives you a ticket, if they're in the know, they could appeal it and probably not have to pay.
so
I
it's a
guess.
secret parking space.
I
or-
suppose it is. It's not a safe parking space. I would not recommend it right now. You'd be blocking the
Right.
travel.
Right, yeah, and there's no way to sort of put a start date on this or anything?
No,
Okay,
because we're changing the official parking regulations. It's the same thing in front of Dunstan East. Right now, we have supposedly meters and a loading zone in front of Dunstan East where they don't actually exist on the ground right now.
okay. All right, well, I'll happy to listen to other people.
Thank you. Councilor Kelly.
Hi, thanks again. I can see why they asked for this to be included now because they've been looking at the site plan and the traffic and the parking, and I think it really makes sense to have moved the handicap to where they did, like, and not have it be combined with a loading spot. And I think a 15-minute spot for things like resident or children drop off or pickup or loading really makes sense here. And as David Kosa said, you can always revisit it later if it's not working. So I actually think this was a good change. I think there is a very good spot because it's right near the entry to have a 15-minute parking. Of course, what we always see is how hard that is to enforce, but perhaps if people are taking advantage of it, there will be some calls and some reports made. So I think it makes sense, and I would understand why you might want to approve that. For their purposes, they would like to have approval, I'm assuming, because when they have to start doing all the curbing and stuff for their entire project, it makes sense to do that at one time and not come back in and change the curbing for this one spot later. So just from a planning perspective and from, I think, what makes sense perspective, this seems like a fine plan to me, but thanks.
Right. Thank you very much. Hi, Sam. You can unmute.
Hi, thank you. Sam Scopatone with Civico Development. We're one of the developers that submitted this request. I just wanted to clarify why we're asking for this at this time. Our concern is that if we're going to reconstruct the sidewalk to create this bump, to create this this carve out, some of our funders may be hesitant to fund that work if it has not been approved by the city yet. So there's that's sort of the issue we're facing. So just to clarify that.
Thank you. I mean, one option was to approve it as a trial, be able to allow the construction and then measure it later, but it's so simple in this case. And luckily we got the site plan with all the measurements, and it was simple for us to come up with the exact measurements. So we might as well just go ahead and vote on the permanent change with the hope and thought that it's not going to change again. So any other comments? Okay, good. So I will make a motion to approve the change, the permanent change as shown on slides 39 and 40. That would be TPR 921. Any last comments? Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Captain Doucette,
Aye.
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Counselor Malachi,
Aye,
Mr. Fishman.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0.
Okay, so we have now approved the change as shown on this slide. We need to wait for our 20-day appeals period, which will bring us to January 3rd. After that, it becomes permanent in the books. And then, we'll be, we'll see that on the ground working with the developer at some point in the future. All right. Thank you. And our next item then is TC 11520. This was the last item that our old director, Jason, had docketed. This is Jason Sobel, Director of Transportation Operations. requesting the following to respond to safety concerns and changing conditions brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. Traffic Council shall be allowed to vote to allow long-term trials on any public street or parking area located within 1,500 feet of a school. These temporary trials may include modifications to the traffic flow, parking, turning restrictions, and/or pavement markings, and are to be approved by the Commissioner of Public Works in consultation with the Director of Planning of the Planning Department and the Chief of the Newton Police Department. These changes are temporary in nature and would revert to original conditions unless Traffic Council subsequently votes to make these temporary conditions permanent. At any time, the Police Department may end any Traffic Council trial. So this item, we heard at the at sort of the beginning of the pandemic back in June of 2020. The whole idea was to be able to make changes through Traffic Council as a trial to help encourage more walking to school, to create, safe distancing at the time. A lot of different trials were put in place at different schools across the city. And as time's gone, this is already almost, 2.5 years ago, right? So most of these trials have now either just ended or items have been docketed over the past 2 years to make the trials permanent. There's only 2 trials that are still ongoing. Both of them are related to Newton North. They're the last 2 items on the agenda that we're going to be getting to. But the idea is now that it's time to NAN this item. We don't need this item anymore. It served a good purpose. And so our recommendation is to NAN. Any comments? Any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will make a motion to NAN this item. And I will ask Danielle to call the roll for NAN.
Mr. Prezant.
Aye.
Captain Doucette.
Aye.
Mr. Kosis.
Aye.
Mr. Fishman.
Aye.
Counselor Malachi.
Aye.
Okay, that's voted. No action necessary, 5-0.
Okay, now we have the last 2 items, which are the 2 remaining trials from this COVID general trial. So we have TC 6223. This is David Kosis, Traffic Council Chair, requesting to continue the Traffic Council trial, which restricts access to Elm Road from Lowell Avenue. That's the Lowell Avenue to Elm Road approach. To restrict access to Elm Road residents, Newton North High School staff, school buses, and bicyclists. Traffic Council originally approved this trial in 2020 as part of TC 11520, which included various traffic and parking changes near school buildings to respond to safety concerns and changing conditions brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so as you are approaching Elm Road from Lowell Avenue, you see this sign has been posted since June of 2020. The goal of this trial was to reduce traffic congestion on Elm Road, especially as you're exiting Elm Road at Walnut Street. It's heavily used. The idea was to discourage parents from picking up and dropping off on Elm Road. It gets too difficult to turn when you're down at Walnut Street. So we want to be able to keep this sign in place even though we NAN'd the bigger COVID trial. So our recommendation is to hold this item to be able to continue this trial, to keep that sign posted. We want to continue to restrict access to Elm Road for the residents of the street. There's a few houses on the street. Also to staff, school buses, bicycles, and deliveries during school hours. So that is my recommendation, to hold for a trial. Jesse.
Hello, I'm Jesse Corey at 64 Oak Cliff Road, and I'm speaking because the sign, it says access restricted on school days, but doesn't list any hours. And I'm interested in having specific hours which vehicles other than the ones listed cannot enter.
Thank you, Jesse. We've heard from the assistant principal at the school who wants to continue to restrict. She basically wants to keep this sign in place. School days, even before school or after school. On non-school days, school, traffic would not be restricted. For now, we just want to continue this trial as is. Any other comments? Mitch?
I guess I was just wondering, what's the dynamic of making this permanent? As opposed to continuing the trial?
Well, I guess we'd have to think through. I don't think I know the answer to how to make this permanent. I guess we would just.
I mean, the
right-
suggestion of a trial extension is that, you're going to learn something and, what more are you going to learn after 3.5 years?
I mean, we know that the sign is being, is often ignored completely. We know that there's still a lot of parents that enter Elm Road. I don't know that we're necessarily asking the police to issue tickets. It's probably very difficult to enforce. It's the same thing we have on Tiger Drive. There's a sign there that restricts access onto Tiger Drive during certain hours of the day. That sign also is pretty much ignored by many, many people. We also have the no left turn into and out of Tiger Drive. That's ignored all the time. So I don't know what the answer is, Mitch. All I know is right now we don't want to lose this trial. So that's, for now, we just wanted to sort of keep it going and then figure out what else we could do later.
I'm fine with it. Just struck me as a little bit odd that you want, if it's working out, why not just make it permanent? But I think I hear you saying maybe there be a gap of time if we let it expire, but I guess you're not necessarily saying that, right?
I'm not necessarily even saying that it's working out. I'm
I
just
see.
saying that we want to leave this sign there.
Okay. I'm good.
Any other comments? I don't know if anyone agrees or disagrees with what I've said. You could chime in if you want. We just want to keep this on our radar screen, keep it as an item on our traffic council agenda, and not forget about it, I guess, for now. Okay, then I will make a motion to hold for a trial.
Hold on.
I was just
Yes.
curious.
Okay, sorry, Councilor Maliki, I didn't see your
and
hand.
I was kind of wondering the same thing as Mr. Fishman, if it's, if we like it, why not make it permanent, even if it's only semi-effective? But if you want to keep it on the radar, is there a certain amount of time? Should it be another 2-year trial, or should there be a duration?
I'm open to your thoughts. I'm not even, so there's other vehicles that enter Tiger Drive. We know, like, driver's ed vehicles enter enter Elm Road, and that happens quite a bit. I don't know if we want to think about how to make this more improve the compliance somehow. I'm not sure, but I'm open to suggestions from anyone.
Hey, David, correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong. So I think one sort of gift of the fact that it has been ongoing trial was a recent tweak we made to the school bus drop-off area along the
Yes.
street.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
that's just kind of a good example. Like, just especially in a large school such as this, like, conditions can be a little fluid depending on the new school year. And we do get requests to make small tweaks, and because of something like this, we can be let's just say a little bit more responsive than permanent votes. So maybe that makes me lean towards keeping it as a trial, but I mean, I sort of agree with everyone. Like I don't know that there's a strong preference here one way or another.
Yeah, thank you for that, Isaac. Yeah, so if you remember, if you remember, we had actually, since the school was built on Elm Road at this sort of at the theater entrance area, or right before that, the curb was painted blue, which is an indication that it's a pickup and drop off zone in Newton, almost like a blue zone that people are used to. It was never actually officially a blue zone. We did not want to have parents picking up and dropping off. And then at the same time, not all the buses couldn't even fit in to sort of that theater entrance parking lot. So we did vote at traffic council to make a permanent change to, remove that blue zone or the blue paint by extending the bus zone. And so I think you're right. This trial made it a little bit easier. We definitely did not want to encourage parents to use Elm Road. They still do, right? And it's a topic of conversation on a regular basis. What can you do? We tried to create the pickup and drop off zone on Lowell, right?
Yeah.
Not very well used. A lot of parents use the Lowell parking lot, the staff parking lot for pickup and drop off, or just continue to, go down Elm Road instead. So I guess continued discussions will continue to occur, right? All right, any other comments on this? Okay, so I made a motion to hold for a continued trial. Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Captain Doucette,
Aye.
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Council Malachi.
Aye.
Okay, that's held for continued trial, 5-0.
Thank you. And our last item is TC 6323. David Kozis, Traffic Council Chair, requesting to continue the Traffic Council trial, which allows vehicles displaying Tiger permits to park in the Austin Street lot without requiring payment on school days. Traffic Council originally approved this trial in 2020 as part of TC 11520, which included various traffic and parking changes near school buildings to respond to safety concerns and changing conditions brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. On June 22nd, 2022, the Public Safety and Transportation and Finance Committees supported a continuation of the free parking for Tiger permit holders on school days until City Council determines whether to make this trial permanent. So we want to continue this trial as well. This is just a picture of the entrance to the Austin Street lot. This trial allows vehicles that display a valid Tiger permit, the high school 170 permits, to be able to park in certain locations on Lowell Avenue, on Hull Street, and in any space in the Austin Street parking lot except the accessible spaces. So that is an ongoing trial, and we want to continue that, even though we just voted to NAN TC 11520. So that's what this item will do, allow this trial to continue until some type of decision is made by the Finance Committee, really, in addition to Traffic Council in the future. So that is my recommendation, to hold this item as a trial as well. Any discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion to hold for a trial. And Danielle, you can call the roll.
Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Captain Doucette,
Aye.
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
and Council Malachi. Okay, that was held to continue the trial, 5-0.
Okay, great. This was one of the fastest traffic.
We
council
have one
meetings
more
we
item.
do have this. yes, we do have nominations and election for the traffic council chair for 2024. And are there any nominations?
Yeah, I have a crazy idea, David.
What's your crazy idea, Isaac?
I don't think you've been doing it long enough, so I'm gonna
One more
nominate
year?
for 1 more year.
Okay, thank you. I will accept that. Are there any other nominations? Okay. So the nominations will be closed. And so Isaac has nominated me to be the traffic council chair for the calendar year 2024. Is there any discussion? Okay. Then we need to vote on that. So Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Captain Doucette,
Aye.
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki.
Aye.
Okay, it's Mr. Kosis for the calendar year 2024.
All right, thank you. So that's the end of our business for this calendar year. Thank you all for a productive year and happy holidays. We'll see you again in 2024 for our next meeting in January. Thanks again.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.